My symptoms started probably around 2005, 2006 when I first started to notice them, but it came on slowly. So it was probably around 2007 when I started to first think that something was seriously wrong.
Some friends of ours had taken our family dog up to the mountains in California, and he came back flea and tick infested. And so I was playing with the dog and I got bit, not just by a tick, but I got bit by fleas all over.
Hello, I'm Spike, and yeah, I came from Alaska to get treatment for my Lyme disease.
I was pretty young. I was in my mid-20s at that point. There was concern that it might be Alzheimer's, and actually that was one of the first diagnoses that it actually gave me, because there was no other explanation for almost the complete memory loss I was having.
I just had bouts of illness here and there, but didn't really suspect that, I had something that was making me chronically ill. Until later, when I was a teenager, I started to have fatigue. I started to have just some symptoms, headaches and things that started to affect me as a young teenager. It progressed with some chronic infections. Every year it seemed that I was always getting something major.
I felt like I had the flu. I didn't have congestion or a cough, anything associated with the flu. Just this fog, this fatigue developed, and this mental fog that just kind of overwhelmed me. And it just felt like I was sinking into a big bottomless pit. I couldn't think, I couldn't do schedules, I couldn't do my job.
From that first diagnosis, I was scared. I was afraid that I was slowly declining and that it would get to the point that I would no longer be able to support my job. I worried what that would do for my marriage. I was scared to death. I would have nights that I was just crying, trying to figure out, what is this going to mean for me? In 5 years from now, where am I going to be? Will I remember anything?
It took a major toll on my marriage, on my first marriage, and subsequently we got divorced about a year after I started to have all of these symptoms.
Most Lyme patients that I've got to know here, you'd go into the doctor and tell them that you're having the fatigue, or you can't sleep, or you got the brain fog, and it kind of correlated with other symptoms of depression. So they would send me to a psychiatrist, or I was sent to a neurologist. The best remedy was to put me on depressants or some kind of pill to remedy the fatigue.
We ended up seeing a Lyme doctor that specialized in both the conventional treatment of antibiotics and also the natural side of things, the supplements. So we did that for about, I'd say it was about 10 to 12 months. I didn't see any worsening at that point, but it became so progressive, it was hard to imagine it actually getting any worse. So after about 10 months, we started talking to the doctor about other options, and he mentioned about doing the IV antibiotic treatment. And plus he said that it could take another year before you really start getting better. So I couldn't take off a year of work just to take the IV treatments at that time.
The doctors, really, they weren't sure what else they could do for me beyond different therapies. Just started to put me on one medication after another. Let's try this, we'll give you pain medication, but let's try, Cymbalta, let's try Lyrica. And so we went that route where I was just going back to the doctor every month and trying to figure out what my next prescription was. And, it got to the point where after several years I was on upward of close to 15 different medications, all of which just seemed to, over time, they would alleviate a few symptoms in the beginning, but they seemed to compound the illness, and make it much worse long term.
About 6 months later, I went to another specialist in Georgia that treats Lyme disease, because I'm trying to find a Lyme specialist, and they put me on Rocephin. And that was an IV, so IV therapy this time. Did that for 7 weeks, but still kept sinking down. Following it up with the physician that prescribed it, I said, I feel a little bit better, but I still have the brain fog. And then she told me that, well, you must not have Lyme disease then, so that's all we can do for you.
So when I first came to Envita for that meeting, I thought they really definitely know what they're doing here. and they have a lot of different options. That if there is one place that could help me, it was going to be this place. They were very caring. Dr. Ertley walked me through everything. Definitely, he reviewed all my files and paperwork, which is very rare for a doctor to actually do, especially a couple years worth of history.
I guess I was nervous about what I was going to experience, and everybody there was so welcoming. It was, there was some familiarity, obviously, because I'd been there before for the testing, but they really embraced me like I was part of a family, and that they were there to take care of me and to help me get through this. And because they knew so much about the disease and the symptoms, I felt comfortable for the first time. Whereas here, I had sheltered myself, I had isolated myself, I'd hid my symptoms. There I could, talk to them openly about what was going on and feel supported.
I could describe what I was going through, and she could describe back. She understood. She gave me the feeling like she actually understood what this was, more than just a mental problem.
The first time that I noticed a benefit, so when I was here for a couple of weeks, Envita had me on the IPAC treatment and all the other stuff that went along with it. It took a couple of weeks. I would say about in the fourth week, they decided to change up my treatment and do some work on draining my lymph nodes and my spinal fluid. And it was at that time that I started feeling a lot better. My short-term memory is no longer an issue. My long-term memory is pretty close to being there. But the greatest benefit I have now is I'm able to do my job. I'm able to interact with people and still remember things. I'm no longer forgetting my best friends' names.
Finally, after 8 weeks, I could tell that my body started to change. It seemed like just something switched, something changed, and I started to just come back from being so weak and so sick. And I remember recognizing that, oh my gosh, as the symptoms started to subside, I don't have the aching in my legs, I don't have this pain anymore. I don't have this headache, I don't have this trembling and this shaking. And I just remember being so grateful and so thankful for each symptom as it subsided.
My fear was, I thought I was gonna lose my mind. I felt like, 5 or 10 more years is what I got left in me. And now I'm looking at 35 years. And I feel like I've been reset. I've been given a gift. And I don't want to lose it.
I mean, I would have to say that going to Envita and going through treatment there and meeting the doctors and everyone, that they saved my life. Absolutely.
What the treatment here at Envita really means for my personal relationships, and especially with my wife and my family, is that I no longer have that fear of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to those relationships. And I feel like now my relationship is much stronger. It's not so much that my wife is a caretaker for me anymore, trying to manage things. We have a more personal relationship again, like we did when we were first married, and that's a huge miracle for me. And especially now as we're thinking about having a family. Before, the concern was, can we have kids? Do we want to have kids? What happens if this is something that we can pass through? And now I have that relief that we can start a family that we wanted to have.